Hello and welcome back to Focus Atlanta. Thanks so much for continuing to watch. We're going to close out the show talking to the fellas. I know a lot of times you guys feel like I'm leaving you out when I'm talking about my health tips and things like that, but we're not leaving you out in this one. I'm here with Nick Slow. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you guys for having me.
Now, is Caribbean Muscle specifically for men, or are we just talking about the men on this particular interview?
We're talking about the men on this particular interview, but it is for everyone.
Okay, all right. Well, give us some tips. The men want to be included too while we're talking about this, beating the holiday bulge and those kind of things. What kind of tips can we give the men in our lives to stay as healthy as they can be?
I love how you're saying including the men because, often we do feel neglected. I will say that. The number one tip, honestly, is simply just staying healthy is just going for a walk, being active. A lot of times we are so exhausted by the day and we're mentally exhausted. So we just sit somewhere, but that's not really doing us any type of justice whatsoever. So when we go for that walk, it not only help us physically, it also help us mentally as well, because we have that time to ourselves to really release a lot of our thoughts and a lot of our emotions, and as we're burning calories and getting our steps in.
Okay, now see, that's a good tip because I think that sometimes people feel like, oh, I've got to do all these things. I've got to get on the treadmill. I've got to lift some weights. I've got to, do this, do that. But you're saying, you know what? Get your body moving, go for
Yep,
a walk,
absolutely.
and it's doing what it's supposed to do for not
Yep.
only their physical health, but maybe even their mental health.
100%. 100%.
Okay, cool. All right, well, we can check that one off the list. What else can they do?
Another thing that they can really do is really honestly be honest with themselves, get in tune with their emotions, and really put themselves in a position where the decisions that they're making each and every single day with their nutrition, is it really best for them? Right? When we talk about eating, are you making the best choice for that end goal? Are you making the best choice to be active in your children's life? Are you making the best choice to be active in your marriage and things of that nature? And because a lot of times we really don't look at the choices we make, but we focus on the results and we say, well, I don't know how. Really, every day's decisions is what leads to that big thing, man.
Okay, now see, that's really an important one because, again, we're always thinking of the big thing, the big leap. But what you're saying is, nope, those small things matter too. We've got to do the
Yes,
small things to gear up to the big things. Will that help us to be
absolutely.
successful at the big things, maybe?
Yeah, success is out of small things done well. So making those small decisions every single day leads to living your best life, the best version of yourself. And I think as men, that's something we tend to forget about is like the moment we get married, we have family, we tend to just focus on being dad and work, right? But really it's time to show up as our very best self, mentally, emotionally, and definitely physically.
Oh, I love that. Okay, you're right. All right. Well, let's pick it up on the emotional and mental side too for the fellas. I love that. Okay, good. Those are two good tips. You got a third one for us?
I do have a third one for you is enjoy life. A lot of times we take life way too serious. We just worry about what tomorrow will bring and all that. Meditate, spend time with God. And tap into your emotions. As men, we don't really like to feel those emotions. And that shows up in our life in many negative ways. And, a lot of times it's really the inner work that puts us in a position to be better on the exterior, how we treat others, our children, our wives, etc., and how we show up at work. Really be in tune with your emotions and don't ignore them.
Oh, that's excellent advice. And again, you're right. You're, preaching to the choir. I think that so often we don't believe that we push those narratives enough for men. We don't really push those narratives enough in terms of, what they're feeling like, what that emotion is like, how's that really translating itself into their health.
Absolutely.
You can't ignore that part of it and then think that you can go to the gym every day and everything's going to be fine. You've got to do both.
Absolutely. And that's something I personally had to learn my own. Like I go to the gym, I'm competing, breaking records, winning titles. But Nix, how are you showing up for your mother? How are you showing up? And, I will soon be married. And it's like, are you putting yourself in a position to be the best husband? Are you putting yourself in a position to be the best father that you will be? So a lot of the work starts within me. And, going to the gym, lifting weights, that's fine. But the inner work is way more important. And as men, that's what we need to first realize, and that's what we need to first start acting upon, so that way we can be our very best self every single day as leaders.
Oh my goodness, it was a pleasure to have you on the show. This is great information. Now,
Yeah.
if they've missed part of the interview, or where can they go on the web? Can they research Caribbean Muscle? How do they find you?
They can definitely research Caribbean Muscles at www.caribbeanmuscles.com. They can also find me on Instagram at Caribbean_muscles.
Excellent. Thanks so much for coming on the show. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to meet you as well.
All right, guys, we can all do this together. We can do this as a family. It doesn't just have to be for the ladies. It doesn't just have to be for the men. We can all do this together, because overall health, all of it matters, right? No matter who you're targeting, if you're targeting men or women, if you're targeting the entire family, it's the overall health that matters, and we're all going to be better off for it. Thank you all for tuning in to this week's episode of Focus Atlanta. I hope to see you next Sunday here on WUPA.